Greetings, everyone. My name is Dr. Jay Singh, and I'm the founder of Publication Academy, your online training partner for higher ed career advancement and professional development. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today for this installment of our Career Pathways series, Exiting Academia. Today we have a fascinating interview with Dr. Neil Bardhan, who successfully transitioned from completing a PhD in brain and cognitive sciences into the exciting industry vertical of arts and performance. So let's get right into it. Over now to our amazing Publication Academy interviewer, Dr. Gertrude Nadra.
And today I am joined by Dr. Neil Bardhan. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to speak with you today.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to speak with you too. So to start off, let's talk about your educational background and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I did my undergraduate work in cognitive science. I focused in linguistics, which was, I would say, an interest of mine that I always had growing up, but I didn't know it was a field until right before I went to college. And then just through kind of some timing, linguistics wasn't a major option for me, but if I'd been at a different institution, maybe I would have focused in that. And as I was about to finish undergrad, I was looking around at what I was interested in, what I could be doing, and I just kind of felt that grad school of some sort was next on the horizon for me. That was also prized and encouraged in my family, I would say. And so I said, well, I think I want to keep pursuing these questions about human language and maybe the sound of it and how do we process it. So yeah, getting to the end of college and thinking I should take more classes. I think the best thing to do is go to grad school. And so I entered a PhD program. The department was brain and cognitive sciences, so a little more neuroscience thrown in at the University of Rochester. And I focused on spoken word recognition and speech perception, kind of under the umbrella of psycholinguistics, so how humans process language. And I was using experimental methods. And so this was a fun for me then, and still is in many ways, way of thinking about how do we measure human behavior with processes that are often, certainly at the level that I was looking at, very below the surface, right? I was looking at things that people would have a hard time responding to verbally, perhaps, or knowing what was happening, especially when it's on the time course of less than a second, let's say, right? People can't always know what's happening for them. I followed that through and ended up doing a postdoc in spoken word recognition, specifically how people understand foreign accents that they're hearing kind of for the first time and get used to those. Again, one of these processes that people do with some regularity in a lot of ways and don't always have a lot of consciousness around the processes of it. At some point I realized that wasn't where I was going to see myself for the future. There was some stuff happening internally and then family-wise, and then the institution that I was at. And I thought, well, now I get to take a look at what I know, kind of intellectually, what I know about myself, and where I think I should be going. And so what kind of kicked a lot of this off was thinking about the cognitive psychology of PowerPoint presentations. So if you think of slides that you've seen, many of them have too many words on them, or you can't read them because you're in the back of the auditorium. There's all these things that people generally don't consider when they're putting a slide together. But somebody that I was reading closely said, hey, we can take what we know from cognitive psychology and pair that with how we design PowerPoint slides and think about presentations and how we communicate them. And so that kind of sparked one thing in me. And the other was that I was listening to podcasts of spoken stand-up storytelling shows. So The Moth is an example that a lot of people recognize. And I was hearing these wonderful stories told by strangers, recorded thousands of miles from me. And I kept feeling, oh, I know this person, or, oh, I understand something of the story. And it felt like it was doing something for me that was different than the talks that I was seeing, right? The colloquia, the seminar, the conference presentations. I said, maybe I can merge all this stuff together, the cognitive psychology of PowerPoint, the theatricality of a stage show. I was a theater kid in high school and college, and so that kind of called to me. And I said, maybe I get to be a person who finds the intersection of this. And that led me to working today in true personal storytelling. And I bring that into technical spaces sometimes. But yeah, it's been quite a journey, and the sort of thing that's been very hard to predict. But I feel very grateful for a lot of the mentorship and opportunities that have come up for me.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Okay, I think I had some echo. Okay, it will go in post production. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely going from neuroscience and language and linguistics to storytelling, it makes sense. But at first glance, it's like, well, how did you get here? So that's going to be my next question, right? Is what triggered, if you want, if you know you feel comfortable sharing some of that, what triggered that shift from, oh, maybe academia is not the path for me, but I would like to apply my skills in this vertical.
Yeah, many things kind of happened looking back simultaneously, but probably not all on the same day. So one of them was kind of waking up and going to the office and doing spreadsheets and thinking about the politics, about publishing, about statistics, and thinking about grants and having to apply for a job every couple of years. And just none of that appealed to me anymore. So that's one factor. And then something else that happened is the institution that I was at was a research institution, and nominally everybody there worked on linguistics, right? If you asked an outsider, so it's a building, an organization, hundreds of linguists running around doing linguistics together. And that was true, but not entirely true, of course, right? People were using different methods, had very different fields that they were approaching it in. And yet you had the administration encouraging us, the postdocs, hey, you guys should be collaborating. Why aren't you guys collaborating more? And we just kind of kept saying, well, what do you want us to collaborate on? How do you picture that happening? There's no support for it. We don't understand what the people down the hall are doing. So I have this very vivid memory of after a Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon talk, standing around with my colleagues, Sarah and Alex, and we just said, how does this keep happening? Like, how do we not know what each other does in any kind of meaningful way, but beyond like a sentence or so? And what do we do with that? And so what we decided was we would convene those of us at our level who were interested to do like a brown bag lunch, like kind of a casual talk for each other, to say, hey, here's what I work on and how I work on it, and aim it specifically at people who they knew what linguistics was, right? They were bright, they were in the field, but using a different approach. So recognizing, hey, you've got a lot of training in something. You might not have taken the exact same coursework that I have. You certainly haven't had the same research path. How do I package this for you over the course of 15, 20 minutes so that you walk away and you say, I learn about the topic that Neil is interested in. I learned about the methods that he used. And I learn about kind of exactly how he's combining those and what that means for the rest of language studies. So to make it a little more concrete, right? So I was using these behavioral methods, people at a computer with headphones and mouse clicks or keyboard responses, basic stuff in some ways. Sarah, my colleague, her background was actually biology, and she was in a genetics lab. So she was looking at the genetic basis of language. Well, our day-to-day lives were so very, very different. And she had never taken a linguistics class or a cognitive psychology class, right? She knew a lot about genetics and an aspect of language that was so far removed from what I was doing. But again, go back to like what the administration, they're like, well, why can't you collaborate? Well, we don't even speak the same language about what it means to have a job in science, right? She's using pipettes and things, and I'm using spreadsheets. It's not the same thing. And so we ran that for a while, and that was one of the big things that lit me up. And I said, oh my gosh, I love when people who are thoughtful about what they work on, present it to each other in a way that shows care for where the other people are coming from, and has a reason to say, look, this is why what I do is valuable to you. And that's different than a lot of the presentations that I was seeing, where it was kind of assumed already that the people who were in the room already cared about what was happening. And this was just kind of a different approach.
Wow. Well, that makes sense. And thank you for sharing that. I think, sometimes people go through that and they're not really sure how to navigate that. But thank you for sharing that. It was one of the things that helped you decide, okay, I don't want to be here where the knowledge is always siloed, right? I want to move into an environment where there's collaboration, where I'm learning, where I'm not stuck. And I feel like with academia, you can easily get stuck in just your little silo and think that's all there is, when in
Yeah,
reality, all these disciplines overlap.
correct.
And yeah, they overlap in real life. They overlap. So thank you for sharing that. So what does a day-to-day basis, like a day-to-day, look like? What's a day in the life of Neil look
Yeah.
like?
So I should point out that I have two jobs now. There was a while where I was freelance and I had like 6 or 7 different jobs at once, but I now have one full-time job and then another job that's part-time.
Right.
So the full-time job is in true personal storytelling. I'm at a group called First Person Arts. It's been around Philadelphia for about 20, 25 years now. And it focuses on memoir and documentary art. And so it's believing that everybody has a story to tell, and sharing our stories connects us to each other and the world, and that this act of storytelling can do wonders for breaking down bias, helping people just understand different lived experiences. And the work that I specifically help coordinate is about bringing people together who may not see themselves as storytellers or may not even believe that they have a story to share, but somebody out there, whether it's their boss or coworker or somebody in their community outside of a professional setting, says, I really want you to be able to talk about what you've gone through and how you live, and bring that to a wider audience. And so, yeah, I just love meeting people and helping them share their stories. So my days are a mix of meetings with potential partners and clients. And earlier today with another arts nonprofit based in town, where we've had a little bit of overlap over the years, but we're cooking up some more formal schemes together, I can say. And then at the same time, right, I get emails that are coming kind of out of the blue, and somebody says, can you come teach a conference workshop? We have a 2-hour block for you. We have 17 people. We really want to focus on telling stories about nursing, let's say. Right? It's a great topic that I really enjoy working on. And so I get to design these learning experiences and live shows, even sometimes, as well as do that individual interaction that the working with scientists kind of brought me in for. And then on top of that, I get to support all sorts of other things that my colleagues do. So we have shows that are intended as entertainment and community building. And we have digital offerings, and there's a whole lot going on. And then also in the evening, basically in weekends, I help run an arts media outlet. So it's a nonprofit news organization that specifically focuses on the arts and culture ecosystem of the Philadelphia region. And I work on our fundraising and partnerships there. And again, that's telling stories, and that's connecting people. And that's the heart of what I do. So yeah, I spend a lot of time on video calls and Slack and email and spreadsheets. But the thing I love the most is sitting down with somebody and saying, hey, how did you get here? Why am I talking to you today? And what are you trying to do? And just learning about the world of people around me.
Yeah. And helping them tell their story. I know that I work in the, life sciences marketing world. And I
Mhm.
know that one of the most powerful tools in marketing is storytelling. And
Yeah.
so, what you're doing is amazing, because you're using all these skills from cognitive sciences and language to tell these stories. And people don't realize how, because I've mentioned storytelling to people sometimes and they roll their eyes like, oh, it's another gimmicky thing. And I'm like, no, but we've been like, really, if you think about the cultures of the world, the way traditions have been kept, the way
Mhm.
language has been kept, right, has been through stories. I think about my own traditions growing up in Ghana and telling,
Mm,
the story. There was this character called Anansi
mm,
in West Africa. It's a story of a spider, and the spider
mhm.
being a wily spider, and the lessons that you derive from his life because this spider is like super cunning. And teaching you how not to be deceitful and cunning. And
Mhm.
I still remember those stories to today. The teachers in school who use storytelling, I remember their lessons more than the teachers that taught straight facts. So people underestimate how powerful storytelling is. So thank you for sharing some of what you do. How did you find your current job? How,
Yeah,
like, once you
yeah,
decided, okay, I don't want to be in
mhm,
siloed academia, how
yeah,
did you find your job?
yeah. I was pursuing several options at once, right? I was considering going back to grad school for something else. I was considering finding a job in tech, considering consulting, all sorts of possibilities. But one of the things that I was looking at was getting a new chapter in my own personal arts education. And so when I was leaving academia, I was to be clear, I was leaving the Netherlands where I had my postdoc for 3 years, and
Okay.
I knew that I was moving to Philadelphia, which I didn't have any roots in. I had friends here, but I didn't have my family hadn't been here, and I hadn't spent much time truly. I just started asking around, hey, what's going on in comedy, in storytelling, in um, blogging, even which speaks to how long ago this was. Blogging mattered. Uh,
Blog.
and I remember emailing with this guy Adam, who I've known for 25 years, and I just said, hey, what's good? And he wrote me this very thoughtful rundown of here's some comedy shows that are happening, here's some people to talk to, and one of the groups mentioned was First Person Arts, which had been on my radar a little bit because another old friend had told a story in a First Person Arts show years and years before that. And I said, okay, well, there's an organization. I can see what they're up to. And they historically have run an annual festival. And so I volunteered at that festival and I just said, I'm around. Now I didn't have a job. I had a lot of free time on my hands and I had a lot of curiosity about it. And
Right.
I basically kept calling them and they kept calling me and they were like, hey, can you come hand out programs at this show? Hey, can you build IKEA furniture was one of the great phone calls that I received. And I just kept saying yes and showing up and picking up what I could from the shows that I was attending and saying, okay, this is something I want to learn about. Okay, how can I take a class in this? Okay, how can I convert ideas and experiences that I've had into something for the stage or something for a written piece? And so over the course of about 2 years, my relationship with the organization evolved from kind of volunteer to uh, helping out at a show here and there to something a little more formal. And over time, that became a half-time job, and then it became a full-time job for me just about 3 years ago now. And I've gotten to work on fantastic projects. I've been worked on our podcast. I've helped develop our archive. The live shows that I have been part of have been truly meaningful. I met my wife through the storytelling scene, which has been pretty great.
Nice.
Yeah. And it just, every day I'm very thankful that I've met people who certainly if I'd stayed on the academic path, I never would have encountered anybody with a similar experience, right? It would have been very unlikely that I would
Mm.
have crossed paths because it would have been so not just siloed, but similar templates within that silo, I would say.
That Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. I think you touched on a number of things that I want to highlight. Number one is once you decided that you wanted to move careers, you tapped into your network. And this is
Oh,
something I
yes.
tell people all the time is like we don't realize that the people we know, the people we've been in grad school with, the people that even from high school and kindergarten, right? They're
Hmm.
such an essential part of our network that we could tap into. So I love that you mentioned that. I also love that you talked about doing volunteer work. I think,
Hmm.
sometimes people want to get into careers, they discount the power of being a volunteer or the power of freelancing or something like that as a way to put your foot in the door, right? Were you going to say something, Neil? Oh, I don't know if I lost Neil. Oh, did I
Are we
lose
back?
you for a minute?
Yeah.
Yes, you're back.
My
Back.
my
Say
laptop connection was
something.
fine, but Riverside was telling me trying to reconnect. So here we
Yes.
are. Yes, the power
Yeah.
of volunteering.
Yeah. The power of volunteering, right? So that's amazing. Um, I think throughout this conversation, you've talked about your transferable skills, right? That you
Hmm.
already had this stuff from your grad school, your grad degree. But apart from, the fact that you had the technical knowledge of this, and you actually, it can tell from speaking, you said you had theater, you were part of theater in
Yeah.
school. So some of those skills, what other transferable skills would you say are helping you be successful in this role?
Yeah. On the one side of things, it's curiosity, right? It's being able to say, I don't know everything. I want to dig in. I want to dig in more. I'm willing to go down a rabbit hole for a couple hours because that's going to serve me well, maybe just for later today's meeting, but maybe this sets me up for the next chapter of my work.
Yes.
And then kind of another side of that is a willing to accept what other people are bringing to the table, right? I can't be a one person nonprofit storytelling organization, right? I have somebody who writes grants. That's not a skill that I have. He's great at writing grants. I need him to do that. I have somebody who runs our marketing department. Okay, that's great. That's not a thing that I'm going to do either. And so I think that plays out in a lot of ways, and that some of that comes from being an academic scientist, where it's like, oh, I have a lab manager who can handle a lot of the logistics and software issues, and then I have assistants, and then I have other peers around me who just they have some different take for whatever reason, whether it's their specific focus or other experience. So there's all that, and then on a very practical side, some of it's about like file management and information organizing. A lot of what I do comes from how I was organizing data files and experimental components, to say nothing of, hey, I'm running 10 different projects at once. I need to have a system of who I'm talking to when I'm replying to their emails, just handling a whole set of meetings, and just knowing like, yeah, every day is going to be a bit different in some way. I'm not going to be on a perfect like every day at 9. I have a sit down with someone. No, it's not at all like that. I just have to pivot over and over throughout the day, and take that as it comes. Also, right, is I've had to learn to be gentle with myself about it. Right, I can't be productive 80 hours a week. It turns out I shouldn't be. I don't need to be. Nobody's actually asking that of me. How do I manage the time and my feelings around it? And that's been important. And then the last thing I'll throw in, right, is writing and reading, and just transferring that knowledge into me, out of me, and communicating with people to say, here's an update. Here's what you need to know. Let's get you up to speed, and then have you weigh in and become a bigger part of the collaboration, or just, hey, here's an update. Let me know what you think, and then I'll tell you again in 6 months how it's going.
Nice. Well, thank you, Neil. This has been really helpful. You've shared such a wealth of knowledge, and each of your answers was like power pack, power pack, power pack. So thank you so much for this discussion. I know our grad students and folks who are going to be watching this video will really enjoy this. Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, happy to help.